Good afternoon. I hereby call this November the 13th meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. We do have a quorum, and we also have Councilmember Burke, who is joining us electronically. With that being said, our first unofficial order of business is always to thank our police department, our fire department, and our emergency management departments for the work that you do to keep our community safe. We salute you, and particularly those who were veterans. As we celebrated this weekend, we also salute you. We thank you all for your commitment and service to the city of Winston-Salem. With that being said, members of the council and committee, if those who don't know, the items on our agenda are typically taken in two parts, the consent and the general agenda. Items on the consent agenda are approved with a sweeping motion unless a member of the council or committee asks an item to be pulled for consideration. With that being said, because we do have someone voting electronically today, I'll turn it over to our clerk to do a roll call for the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second? I'll second it for further consideration. All in favor? Madam Clerk, if you give the roll call, please.
Sure. Councilmember Mundy?
Aye.
Councilmember Larson is absent. Councilmember Taylor?
Aye.
And Councilmember Burke?
Yes.
All right, the consent agenda is approved unanimously. Now we'll move to our general agenda. Members of the council and committee, we have a need to come back to item G1, so without objection, we'll move to item G2, please. Madam Clerk.
Item G2, Winston-Salem Fire Department update on skills and equipment, apparatus, and staffing.
I'd like to recognize our fire chief, Chief Mayo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to you and Madam Mayor Pro Tem and members of the committee and council. Got several things this afternoon. These slides just kind of run concurrently. Wanted to bring you up to date on some changes in our medical response program. That'll be the first order of business. If I can get an operational clicker here.
There we go.
There we are. So I want to talk to you just briefly about some coming changes to our medical response program, some new drugs and equipment that is either on board or will be coming on board at the first of the calendar year. But before we do, I just wanted to let you remind you, and some folks just may not know, but I thought this was a good opportunity to convey some of the things that we are carrying now. Of course, firefighters are carrying Narcan, that is the drug used to reverse an opioid overdose. They are carrying nitroglycerin. Nitroglycerin is a vasodilator used to treat chest pain associated with angina and cardiac events. Epinephrine is a vasoconstrictor. It is used to treat anaphylactic shock. Aspirin, pretty common drug. You know, you can buy it over the counter, but we give aspirin in a 324 milligram dose for chewable baby aspirin to patients experiencing a heart attack. Aspirin makes platelets not so sticky, so it reduces the chances when there is an occluded coronary artery. It reduces the chances of platelets sticking in that damaged blood vessel and completely occluding it before the patient can get to a cath lab. And then, again, oxygen, pretty common. You know, there's 21% of it in the air we're breathing. But in the concentration that we deliver, oxygen is a pretty powerful drug used to treat head trauma, sickle cell crises, chest pain, stroke, shock, those sorts of things. So again, these are things that we currently have on board. Upcoming things, this will be in January. We will begin to carry glucometers to measure blood glucose levels, and also glucagon. So up until now, we have carried an oral glucose to treat symptoms of low blood sugar. The thing about oral glucose is it has to be given to a conscious patient who can maintain an airway and swallow. Glucagon can be given to an unconscious patient. It will be an intranasal administration, so that'll be an improved level of service. We are also already carrying what is known as CPAP, continuous positive airway pressure. So this is a oxygen delivery device that is a tight seal to a patient's face to support heart failure, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, obese patients with increased respiratory effort, those sorts of things. We also are now carrying albuterol. Albuterol is a bronchodilator that relaxes the muscles in the patient's airways and is used to treat wheezing and conditions associated with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease such as emphysema, asthma, things like that. We also are carrying pulse oximeters, which allow us to measure saturated oxygen in a patient's blood, which, what we're doing here is measuring kind of where we start, and then with our oxygen delivery and airway support, kind of where how we're moving the needle in terms of improving oxygenation. And then finally, I do not have this on a slide, but wanted to make you aware that we are in talks with Forsyth County EMS and are close to putting a unit in service downtown that will have a firefighter, a bear team clinician, and at least an advanced EMT from Forsyth County EMS. We hope a paramedic, and we really hope for an MIH paramedic to take some of the load off the downtown fire companies. They are getting beat up pretty badly on some days, as is EMS. So this will be on a light response vehicle that the county is going to provide, and there won't be much, outside of a law enforcement issue, a patient needing transport, or a sure enough fire. That unit will not be able to handle. And it also kind of a little bit becomes a force multiplier for the bear team. So they will be responding as a unit with other personnel, so that they're not responding by themselves, which has kind of been a vision of that program as additional staff becomes available. All right, that is stage one of my slides. I'll take any questions that you or anybody else has.
Any questions for Chief Mayo? Councilwoman Scipio.
I think this is just interesting to know that we're doing this with our fire department, having all these different medications, which are really vital for people who are in crises. I'm just sitting here thinking, the fire department carries all these medications, but I would think that the EMS would be the user of most of those, but I guess our fire trucks get there first. Oh, sorry, my mic is not on, thank you. The fire department usually gets to these emergencies first. So my question is just about supply. Do we tend to run out of these medications before they expire, or is the volume such that we use up our supply and we always have fresh medications?
In most cases, we use it up before expiration, but our folks work with EMS. So for almost all of this stuff, except for the initial allotment, there is no cost to the city. So when we use Narcan, for example, on a call, we get that replaced from EMS. And if our folks see something approaching, like on a slow engine company, say up at Station 20, they don't run a lot of medical calls. If they see something that is approaching expiration date, they'll swap it out with a busier company or swap it out with EMS so that it doesn't expire.
Thank you. It's just fascinating, the services that we render to our residents. And I've actually had to receive some of it in my life, so I'm very thankful for what our fire department does, particularly on these emergency calls.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Councilmember Mundy.
Thank you for bringing us up to date. And I know people personally who need that EpiPen, and if they don't have theirs, you could definitely save a life. But that does raise a question. What do we do about allergies or potential allergies to any drugs we might administer, particularly if the person you're dealing with is unconscious?
So we try to get information from family members or friends who are around. But beyond that, we kind of take it as, what is the lesser of the two evils, allowing somebody to die or assuming the risk that they are allergic to something. But for the allergies that people would have to most of the stuff we carry are pretty low. For example, epinephrine, your body, what we carry is synthetic, but your body produces epinephrine. Your body produces glucagon. So these are things that in a lot of cases that the body is already producing. And
Fairly low risk to be in with.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for Chief Mayo on this phase of the presentation? Chief, please continue.
Thank you. The next thing I have here is several meetings back, Councilmember Larson had asked about our apparatus replacement schedule and how we compared to our peers. So we reached out to folks around the state who approximate our size. Now, Charlotte, of course, does not approximate our size, but for apparatus replacement, when you look at the size of our department compared to the size of theirs versus service delivery, you can draw an apples to apples comparison. So, and this is what we found here, that Winston-Salem is utilizing apparatus longer than our peers are. And if you see, just for some context, if you see here, I've got a superscript there behind Greensboro. They were the only ones we could get good data from, but a ladder truck in Winston-Salem answers twice as many calls in a year as does a ladder truck in Greensboro. So that just serves to place additional demand on those apparatus resources. And then also the superscript behind Raleigh, they are in the midst of, they have hired a consultant to work with them with the anticipation that they are going to go to a 10 and 10 replacement also. So after that happens, we will be, it'll be an appreciable difference between what we are doing and what our peers around the state are doing. If we were to go to 10 and 10, for example, there are 17 apparatus in the frontline fleet today that would require replacement under that schedule. 7 of them have had replacements ordered, so there would be 10 still out there that would be outside of the recommendations of a new schedule if we were to adopt something different than what we're doing now, just to give you some context.
Chief, Mr. Larson.
Chief, thank you for this information. Is the 15 years policy or just how it works out? I mean, do we have an actual written policy that's 15 years as a drop dead date, or?
I would defer to Mr. Tesh. I don't believe anything is written down. It's just kind of what we've always done. Is that an accurate?
For those who don't know, Mr. Tesh is our budget director. You have the floor, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Councilmember Larson and Chair as well. We don't have a definitive written policy, as the chief said. I do think in the past, the 12 to 15 years on engines and pumpers and probably 15 to 20, it really has just depended on resources from time to time. And so when you hit the 2008, 2009 recession, that number probably did get longer. I know that here recently we've put a few extra replacements in to try and get back on. That number may be closer to what we're actually doing than policy, but no, there is no specific policy document. This has been something that is we've worked with fire chiefs on in the past.
As sort of a follow-up, how long does it take to is procurement on one of these fire trucks these days?
So in terms of delivery, the bullet point that Chief has down there at the bottom, you're looking between 2 and 3.5 to 4 years, depending on what type of apparatus it is.
Yeah. So we're way behind the curve here. We need to be planning 2 years, 2.5 years out of replacement, right?
In today's market, yes, every fire department in the country is having to look at a different replacement schedule with respect to delivery timelines. It is something that we are looking at and will be addressing as part of the budget.
I guess the question I'm raising is whether or not, in realizing that our procurement is 2.5 years out, whether we should be ordering with the idea of 2.5 years out obsolescence.
Some of those are more than 2.5 years out, and absolutely, it's things that we are currently looking at. This is a market that has turned around a lot since COVID. It is something new to us, but it's not new just to us, it's new to everyone. Part of the reason it takes so long to get a fire truck is because there are so many more being ordered, and there are only a few manufacturers, I think only 2 or 3 stateside that really do a lot of this. But it is absolutely something that we will be looking at, and in terms of the schedule itself, yes, needing to account for, at least in the short term, those delivery timelines as it relates to when you replace and then actually deliver the vehicle.
We have how many trucks out right now we're waiting for?
7.
7, we're waiting for 7. And what is our back order on some of those trucks, 2.5 years?
Or plus.
Or more? We've got to figure out a better way to get ahead of the power curve on this, otherwise we're going to be driving a bunch of old trucks.
Mr. Tesh, before you take your seat, I saw a few hands go up. Are there any direct questions for Mr. Tesh before he takes his seat?
Yeah,
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
thank you, Chair Taylor. Good afternoon, everyone. You know, when I look at these numbers, Chief, and the years and the engines and the ladders and the other cities outside of Charlotte, again, I know we just didn't get here. If you're talking about some of your other parts of your report, talking back to 1980, heck, most of us were still in college or just getting started in life. So, you know, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be held accountable, but it's a little late in the day to be holding me accountable for almost 30, 40 years, Mr. Chair, of decisions that were made that I had nothing to do with. And I hear that a lot from a lot of people. How often, Chief Mayo, if you have the information, how often do these ladders and engines break down? And you don't have to have the answer now, but I'd like it before Monday. What is the maintenance schedule? How often do they break down? And how does that impact our being able to operate right now in the city of Winston-Salem? Because if you tell me that I got 10, 15 trucks or ladders, engines that are not functioning, then that's one of those times where my peers know it's everybody circle the wagons, all hands on deck. If there are people being put possibly in danger, probably, but what does that look like for the length of time that we've been running this ship this way? And how has that impacted the safety and the quality of life of the citizens of Winston-Salem? That's one. 2, you said that Greensboro, we run out ladder trucks twice as much as Greensboro. I'm not doubting that your data is not correct and they didn't give it to you that way, but I find it kind of hard to believe for me, being that Winston-Salem is so much smaller than Greensboro, and that we are running our trucks, ladders twice as long. I'd like to see the information or the data that tells me why and what are we running twice as long for. And one last comment, Chair, all of this that we up in here talking about, we got a budget that's coming, and every meeting that I'm in, everybody know what that means. We all getting ready to feel some pain. So again, get your mind right. Anything that anybody wants, I know that departments are going to be bringing us requests for resources, tools, equipment, other things that we need to run this city. But everybody need to understand what's got to happen between now and Mr. Tesh, and when we get to you and Mr. Rao, as to how this budget's going to look, because we're going to feel pain. There are going to be some things nobody's going to get, because there's some other things that we have prioritized or will have to prioritize. And in that respect, I'm looking for Chief Mayo and you guys to bring us a plan as to how you think we're going to get this done, knowing the way the economy is, knowing the way logistics are, and getting supplies and things here for trucks and electric cars, as some people want. It's a good thing to want it, but from what I know, and I'm going to this conference in a couple of days, it's a wish list. So we need to prioritize what that's going to look like. I appreciate the information, but I need, just like in another meeting I was in yesterday, I need more information. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Tesh, is it possible to look at this video and get us that information before Monday? This is an information item, but, you know, as much of that as we can get, if you can provide that before Monday. Thoughts?
There are some of those data points that we could probably get before Monday. What I will say is that we do have a group, the Citizens Budget Advisory Council, that is intending to look at this going into the budget season. And as part of that, we would be looking at a lot of what the chief has here, as well as some other metrics, and bringing that back. So on a 1-week timeline to provide all of that
I
information.
got time.
But definitely in advance of budget season or going into it, the intent was to come back with information for some of this, absolutely.
I asked that aloud because I just wanted to be able to manage expectations. I think we've got Mr. Larson that's got is your question directly to Mr. Tisch?
Follow. We're not Mr. Tesh, no.
Thank you, Mr. Tisch. Chief?
Chief,
Mr. Larson.
to try to get a clear understanding of apples to apples on this, can we get an idea of how many fire trucks Greensboro has and how many fire trucks we've got and how many ladder trucks we've got? So we can see if they've got more trucks, they're not going to put as much mileage, obviously, as we're putting out.
Yes, sir, and that's the answer to Mayor Pro Tem's question. Is
I suspect
the last ladder truck that we replaced was out of service about 90 days in its last 12 months of service. And Greensboro, we put twice as many calls on a unit in a year as Greensboro, because Winston-Salem is an 8-ladder company city. We only have 5 in service. Greensboro has 12 ladder companies in service. That's the difference in the call demand.
And Chief, I think we had a couple of more questions about the replacement schedule. Councilmember Mundy.
This is more of a comment than it is a statement, and I'm going to echo Mayor Pro Tem's words. It seems like we generally bring up the rear when we compare ourselves with any peer group, peer city, and the excuse is we don't have the money, we don't have the resources. There's only one way really for us to get the resources, and that is to charge the tax rate that needs to be charged. But we're doing our citizens a disservice if their house is going to burn down because we don't have enough resources or one of them breaks down, and we know that other cities are getting their new things because they have the resources. We've got to figure out how to do that. This is one of many examples. The other was increase in salaries. We probably were the last city in Winston-Salem to say, maybe if we raise our salaries, our people will stay. It's a new day. It's a new city manager. We have got to bring in the revenue to meet the expenses, and we have to charge full boat for the expenses. This is not directed towards you because you've only got, if we gave you more money, I'm sure you would spend it. But I'm looking back at the council as well. You all, I've only been here a couple of years, you all are the ones who have not voted for the taxes to match the income. And when you, or the taxes to match the expenses. And when you take your expenses down, that's a disservice to every single citizen in Winston-Salem. And I'm just really tired of bringing up the rear.
Councilwoman Scipio.
Thank you, Chief. I think this always opens up the conversations that we don't want to talk about. Since I've been on the council, the one thing I think we have neglected is maintenance in every phase of our operations. We've worked on having a lean machine to be effective. It may not be efficient. I think that it's prudent for us to have a replacement schedule for all of our equipment, particularly in the fire department. We also must have good maintenance. One day I was out at Quarry Park and I heard this roar coming up the street, coming to the top. And when it came up to the top of the park, I said, my God, that's a fire truck. It was the worst sound. And you know how I am. I'll ask a question to whoever get the answer. And I said, why is your truck sounding like that? Well, we're trying to keep it on the road, but it needs a certain maintenance, and they were short staff in the maintenance repair area. So I hope you'll look at that also, because we can extend the life of equipment by keeping it well maintained, but we have to have the right mechanics to do that. And that was 5 years ago. just so we'll know what time we're speaking about. But I think we need to be very comprehensive in what we need in every department in the city as it relates to replacement and maintenance. Because everybody needs to know whether we need to buy 10 fire trucks next year. But right now, we're behind, because if we haven't ordered it 3 years ago, we won't get it next year. So it's being proactive, it's being on top of what we really need to know to operate efficiently and effective to give the public the kind of service that they need. Any kind of way we can extend the life of those trucks, I think it's really great. And my question I want to ask that I don't know the answer to at this time is, when a fire truck is decommissioned from us, our department, is there a resale department or a market? Or what happens? Is it just that we lose it, or can we make money off of resale?
So when an engine or ladder goes out of frontline service, we place it in reserve service for 3 to 5 years, whatever we can get out of it, before it just becomes such a maintenance disaster that we just surplus it. When it is surplused, by the time we get done with it, it sells for the price of the scrap metal. That's the only value. We're selling them for $6,000 or $8,000. Now, if in a different environment where it had only 40 or 50,000 miles on it, you could sell it as a used apparatus or trade it in on a new one. But by the time we surplus one, it has 150 to 175,000 miles on it, and it has no value as a fire truck anymore.
Thank you.
Chief, have you finished your presentation?
No, sir. If you can bear with me, I have some more.
It's quite all right. Any questions before we move forward? Chief, please continue.
Thank you. So when we were going out and looking at the situation involving apparatus replacement, in light of the fact that when EnviroSafe presented its after-action report following the Weaver fire, which would have been this past January, they identified us. They said it appears that the Winston-Salem Fire Department is understaffed. We asked some other questions of our peers while we had them on the phone talking about apparatus replacement. And so this information on this slide right here, you all would have seen when we presented the strategic plan back in, that must have been in, I can't remember if we did it in June or August. It was one side or the other of July. But this was the slide that Mayor Pro Tem Adams was talking about, that, you know, we were a progressive fire department in 1980 when we hired what they called back then a fire and life safety educator. We call them risk reduction specialists now, but you can see how much the city has changed in terms of area and population, and we still have that one authorized position over 40 years later. And we had that, WPR Consulting did that climate assessment for us in 2020, and one of their recommendations was that we increase our staffing of risk reduction specialists. So just wanted to, so I went through each of the branches in terms of these staffing comparisons, and they're up here in alphabetical order. Also related to staffing in the fire and life safety branch. So we have not added any staff, but this is, you know, we have added nearly 700 inspections since January 1st of 2021. We follow the state schedule, and we are over 2,000 inspections behind on that schedule. And there are 1,350 inspections out there in what's defined as an R2 occupancy. These are the 8, 10, 12 building apartment complexes where one person may own one building, somebody else owns a couple of buildings. There are multiple owners and we do not have, the fire code does not give us authority inside those dwelling units, but what we are not inspecting because we don't have the resources to do it is grills on balconies, storage, blocked storage under stairwells, blocked stairwells, fire extinguishers on the outside of apartment units that are missing, discharged, haven't had their inspection performed. Those are the things that we're missing in these R2 occupancies. We also compared logistics branch staffing. So the logistics branches where apparatus are specified and ordered, fire stations are designed, toilet paper, glass cleaner, turnout gear, all that stuff, all the tools and equipment and uniforms and all that stuff that goes to support what the fire department is doing. You see what our staffing looks like compared to our peers in Durham, Greensboro, and Raleigh. 4 of those 5 positions in our branch are apparatus mechanics. So, and back to your point, Ms. Scipio, you all as a council, Ms. Tony recommended it, and you all did approve a 4th mechanic in the last budget. We're preparing to fill that position. But so if you take out those mechanics, you have 1 person tending to all of this stuff right here, in addition to uniforms and the apparatus specification and ordering and doing the midpoint build inspections, the final inspections before apparatus are delivered, all of those sorts of things, just to give you an idea of all the stuff that we have to do what we do, and all that stuff has to be maintained. In the operations branch, make sure I get to my right place here in my notes.
Chief,
Sir,
what is SCBA?
self-contained breathing apparatus. That's the air tank that firefighters wear on their back so that they can breathe in atmospheres that cannot support life.
Thank you.
So compared to our peers, our authorized staffing is 1/2 person less than the per company in service. We have 25 companies in service, 19 engines, 5 ladders, and a rescue company. So that's 25 divided by 2. I gave us the benefit of the doubt. You know, there's not a 1/2 person. So that's 13 people per day that we are short relative to our peers. And I'm not a slide reader, but we have had a number of folks over the years, going back to the early 2000s, say, you don't have enough people. And most of you, except, council members Scipio and Mundy were not on the council. I can't remember about Councilmember Larson. I can't remember when you came on, but in January, on July 1st, 2015, the city doubled the amount of sick leave that firefighters had in their sick leave, what HR calls their sick leave bucket. So if you had 2 hours, you got 4. If you had 2,000, you got 4,000. You ended up with 4,000. We had some employees with 5,000 or 6,000 hours of sick leave on the books who ended up with 10,000 or 12,000 hours of sick leave on the books. When that change was made, we also doubled the accrual rate for any kind of earned leave, sick, holiday, vacation, special leave. And you see what has happened here. When we closed out the fiscal year that ended June 30th, our employees had almost 1.4 million hours of leave on the books. And we are not staffed anywhere near to allow them to use that sort of leave. So what we do is we go out and try to recruit and say, look at our leave package, but it doesn't take long for word to spread in the fire service that, you know, they're going to give you that leave, but you can't use it. And ultimately, it rolls to sick. And when I was hired, that meant something to me because I knew I was going to retire from the fire service. But a lot of the folks we are hiring today, they are going to be a firefighter for 3 or 4 years, and they're going to go do something else for 3 or 4 years. And that's not just in Winston-Salem. Every fire chief I talk to across the country is telling the same stories. We are all doing the same thing on a greater or lesser scale. But we did not make any adjustment in staffing to compensate for all this additional leave that our employees are earning. And what my point was about all the you know, all this leave ultimately rolling into sick, that meant something to me. But for somebody who wasn't going to retire from the fire service, they want to use that leave. And it is a morale killer when we say, look at all this leave you get, but it is not physically possible for us to allow them to use even half of that leave. We just don't have enough personnel resources to do it.
Chief, before you move, I think we've got an operations staffing question. Mayor Pro Tem
Yes,
Adams.
thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair. This is an opportunity for staff and others to get together, and City Attorney, with HR and Mr. Pate, if we again continue to make policies, and you all have heard me say this, and nobody is monitoring what is going on in the world. How is this going to impact us down the line? Oh, today there was a housing crash. We need to do this now. Rewind the tape. Let's redo it. We always have the option to change stuff for the better. Our job and focus is to keep this city running and making sure our citizens get the services that they are paying for. But my thing is on this gives us an opportunity. I know when we did this. That's just like something else we recently did that nobody kind of figured out what was going on, but the city manager knows about it now. This is another one of those instances. Somebody bring me the comparison of the police and the fire. The police have way less people than the fire do. If the fire are racking up these many hours, what are the police racking up? And is this realistic in the world that we live in now, Mr. Pate? If we need to walk this back a little bit, a moratorium on it, until we can get people hired in positions. Because if people are coming to work every day and racking up leave time and there's nobody to come and fill the gap, then this is a runaway train. So that's my challenge, Councilmember Taylor, to staff and management, is to go take a closer look at this side by side with our police department.
Rightfully so. Chief Mayo.
Yes, sir. Just to give you a snapshot of the gravity of this situation, we have in certain situations where an employee can earn over 9 months, they earn enough leave to take off over 9 months in 1 year, and their leave balance on December 31st of that year will look exactly like it did on January 1st. That is not sustainable.
It's immoral.
In the training branch, we did not have a training branch until Ms. Tony recommended to you all, and we are gracious that you all approved a battalion chief in the training branch that was in 2021. But so until then, all we had was a branch director. We didn't have anybody to really carry out any training. We just had somebody, we had an assistant chief of training, but nobody on the ground. But you can see here how our training branch staff compares to our peers. And then we have these, just some thoughts for you to consider, that we could close our staffing gap in the operations branch, that 39. Remember that 91% of our resources are in operations. 2/3 of those employees are not at work at any given time because we run a 3-platoon system. That's how we hold down overtime costs, scheduled overtime. So you work 24 hours and then you're off for 48 and then you work 24. But again, I'm not a slide reader, but this is a way that we could close some of those gaps in our various branches where we have some staffing shortages. And we estimate that the reduction, so our average callback needs for overtime staffing to meet minimum staffing every day is 12. So this 13 would cover our average callback staffing needs, and we estimate that the reduction in overtime costs would pay for between 1/3 and 1/2 of this. That is all, sir.
Thank you, Chief. If we have a few more questions, we'll go to Councilmember Mundy, and then we'll move over to Councilmember Scipio. You have the floor, Mr. Mundy.
Yeah, and this is, again, not questions, it's comments, and I want to drive this point. We brag oftentimes about how low our tax rate is. What we don't brag about is over the last 100 years, we've gone from the largest in population city to the 5th largest. So on average, every 20 years, we drop a point. We drop a place in North Carolina. That will continue to happen if we continue to operate like this. I think we have to ask the question, not what does it cost to do it, but what does it cost not to do it? When I hear that there are inspections that are not being done, I think they call that in a court of law negligence. So I wonder how many millions of dollars, if I wrote this down and I lived in one of those apartments and there was a fire and I lost my spouse and my children and my pets and all my beings, how many millions of dollars might I be able to sue the city for? So sometimes it's not how much it costs to do it, it's what it costs not to do it. And we've got to start doing better.
Councilwoman Scipio.
Chief, I want to thank you for bringing this information to us. We cannot do our job if we don't know what our staff is having to deal with and what they're encountering. This is an eye-opener for me because we always talk about the shortages we have with the police department, but we don't give the same discussion to fire. Because when you are at work, when the firemen are on the road, looks like they're doing a great job.
And they are.
And
We
they
have
are.
outstanding employees.
And I want to say they are good. And we really, really are thankful that we are delivering services, but they could be better. And they should be better. So I thank you for bringing this to our attention because I think this is a kind of discussions we must have as a council on how to make sure our city is excellent in demonstration, not in imagination.
Councilmember Larson.
Thank you, Chief, for bringing all this information to us. It's a little daunting when you look at sort of where we got to get to, but I think we can get there. In every poll that the citizens have made for the city's performance in various categories, the fire department always is ranked #1. People appreciate what you're doing, and they see you out there, and the medical aspect is a part that I think people don't really realize what a great service that is that you provide unless they actually call 911 and a fire truck responds before the medical teams do. I think what we've got here is a planning process challenge. And I think what you heard today, I think from councilors, we're anxious to work with you and trying to figure out how the best way it is to bring our standards up. I'm still anxious to do a comparison against Greensboro and High Point, and we'll pick whatever, Durham, try to pick a few additions. How many trucks, how many staffing, what kind of budgeting? Are they equivalent, are they not equivalent? And if it's as bad as I'm at the beginning to think it is, then we've got a hole that we've got to dig out of. And we just opened a nice fire station, number 13 there for Lee Garrity. I think Lee Garrity wants a good performance station coming out of his named station, and I'd like to see that fully staffed. We got 3 bays there. I think we're filling one of them right now. And hopefully we can bring that fire station up to par as well as the other stations we've got. So thank you for this presentation. We will look forward to be working with you in the months ahead as we work toward budget. And we're not going to solve this all in one budget, but we need to begin to plan long-term on it. So help us do that.
Thank you. I appreciate your support and everybody on the council in the past, and look forward to working with you going forward.
We'll give the final word to Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes, thank you. When we're talking about staffing or resourcing, and I'm sure we could have this conversation in practically every department that we have, but there are a few departments that aren't suffering from lack of staffing, like the fire or the police or some others, or heavy equipment operators. One of the things that I would like to request from staff, again, is when you talk about staffing, and I saw where the chief put in here no training facility and other things, I am not going to make it any secret, and some of you know I've had personnel staff to call me, text me, email me about some concerns. And I have had these concerns, Chief knows this, and some of you for quite a while. I don't understand why we are training people up in King or wherever and doing some of the things when we have real estate around here that we could have built that in Councilmember Taylor's ward or something. But I do want us, Mr. Pate, to find out what's going on before it becomes a real problem. I want to find out, like, the staffing of both or any department. Maybe we'll find this out in the salary study, I don't know. But again, I'm airing our laundry, some of it, and I have no issue with that because there are things that we need to be looking at and talking about versus just acting like they don't exist. Mr. Pate, I'm putting that one on you, okay? I want to know, the council needs to know of some of the concerns that have been aired as to what is really going on, data, documentation, the deal that makes it viable and real as to how we can make this situation better. Again, it goes all the way back for me, again, as to how are we dealing with diversity in some of these departments that it doesn't look like it exists. And I need correction. We need that to be looked at. I don't know whether it'll be fixed, but it needs to be looked at. And I promise the employees, and all of you get calls, city attorney probably tired of me sending her emails from employees, but I promise them, if they send me an email and they text me or call me, I'm going to forward it to appropriate staff, just like you read in my emails. It might not be my pay grade, but I'm going to give it to you all to go figure out if this is a problem and why is it a problem and what do we need to do to fix it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Adams. Mr. City Manager, your name has been referenced several times. I want to just give you a
I sound like
slight
Ms.
space.
Burke doing that, don't I?
Mr. Pate, do you have any comments? Thank you, Chief.
The only thing I'll say for council and the committee today is that I hear you loud and clear. I know that there's a lot of issues that need to be looked at, and there's a lot of priorities, and that's why you have the budgeting process, so that we can bring you back accurate data of what's going on and provide you some priorities of what it will take. And I absolutely agree, we've got to make sure that we're maintaining the services and the facilities that we have first and foremost, including taking care of the employees that we have here before we are looking at expansion of new items. And so, and I've heard that loud and clear from all of you that that's what you want to make sure we're doing. And so I look forward to this budgeting process to bring back some information on that to you.
Thank you, Mr. Pate. Thank you, members of the council and the committee. Great conversations, and we'll continue these conversations when we look at our 2024-25 budget. With that being said, we move to item G3, please.
Item G3, information on North Carolina Domestic Preparedness Region 5 grant opportunity.
Chief Mayo. We could have just had you stay in the hot seat, but
Perhaps a quicker kill this time, Mr. Chairman. This, technically by policy, we didn't need to bring this before you, but I'm still gun shy about the 2016 SAFER grant, so I would rather show it to you and not have needed to than needed to and not have shown it to you.
and we certainly appreciate it.
We, Mr. Vernon, Emergency Director, I'll get it in a minute, Emergency Management Director Vernon, working with the North Carolina Division of Emergency Management, found us a reimbursable grant for some deployed Logix shelters. And here you see a picture of what those shelters look like. You can, so this is obviously as a single, you can put them together. Here's what the inside of one looks like. It's a rigid frame shelter. But the way this grant works is the city would spend $75,000 to purchase 3 of these shelters, and they come with HVAC units. You know, they're fully enclosed. Tote, you know, like a big hard Pelican case that you can on wheels that you can carry them from place to place. So the way it would work is the city would pay $75,000 to purchase 3 of these shelters. We would keep 1. 2 of them would go to other jurisdictions this is Domestic Preparedness Region 5 that we are in, and then the state of North Carolina Division of Emergency Management would reimburse us fully the $75,000. And the way this works is once they go into to state emergency management's resource queue, we can share these things around. So if something was going on here and we needed those other 2 shelters or 10 more of these shelters from around the state, state EM would work with local EM to get those shelters here. And the same for ours. If they were needed in another county, for example, in the domestic preparedness region, we would send ours out. And when that event was over, we would get it back. Again, there's no match, fully reimbursable, but we wanted to make you aware of it.
Any questions for Chief Mayo? I saw Councilwoman Scipio, then Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
What are some of the uses for these shelters?
So you could use it for triage and treatment of medical patients. You could use it for a temporary morgue. You could use, I know that's kind of morbid, but
It is what it is.
But right, we're in the business that we are in. You could use it as recon. You could use it as an incident command post. When our water rescue team deploys as a statewide asset, they take one of these with them and they operate out of it. So anything you would need, a kind of a temporary little house that approximates the size, you know, of a big living room. And again, you can put them together and make it bigger than that. These shelters are suitable for those sorts of uses.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Yes, thank you. Chief, does any other city have these in the area besides, let's say, us getting them? I know it's in Region 5, but does Greensboro, High Point, any of the larger cities, or even smaller cities, does anybody else have one within an hour, 2 hours from us?
I know Greensboro has them. My educated guess would be that Charlotte has them because they have these statewide deployable assets also. Asheville, Raleigh, Wilmington, Fayetteville. So this is kind of a standard issue in the industry because we know if we all have them, that we can all join them up together and the wiring and everything all works. So this is kind of the standard issue. So yes, ma'am, there are probably 100 of these tents in the state.
Yeah, I've seen them before. Like you said, at least 100 of them in some cities I've gone to where they gave us tours of the next for domestic preparedness. And with the world the way it is right now, again, we being the largest city in the northwest quadrant of the state, I have no issue with it, just like when we got the FEMA grant. I have no issue with us being one of the cities that other smaller towns, counties or whatever can depend on if they need to. And it's 100% reimbursable, so I mean, you can't argue with that. So.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilman Larson.
I think Winston-Salem should be on the list of one of the cities that has one of these devices, structures. We're big enough. I think we should be asked to support and help when we had that hurricane comes rolling in down east and they need emergency shelters. We're able to help our neighbors down wherever they may be, and hopefully we won't ever need one ourselves. But it's sure good to be able to help anybody else who needs one. So I'm all for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Any other questions or comments? As you've heard, this is $75,000 that we pay up front, and this particular grant is 100% reimbursable. This is for informational purposes only. And Chief, we thank you for these 2 items.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is there a timeline, Chief, to this? Is there a timeline?
The grant application has to be turned in by the end of December, but we wanted to get it to you sooner rather than later, get it in front of you all. But Deputy Chief Hardison and EM Director Vernon are working on the grant application.
All right. Thank you.
Councilman Larson.
Chief, thank you for the initiative. Somebody hunting this up and figuring it out.
Again, the credit belongs to Director Vernon. He's the one that found this grant.
Well, it's a great move forward, and I'm proud of the staff for finding it.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you to Director Vernon as well. Is there any other questions or comments on item G3? Members of the council committee, we have a need to hold item G1 in committee until next month. With that being said, that completes both our general agenda and our consent agenda. Is there any other further business that should be brought forward? We have one piece of business. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Mundy.
Thank you. I want to ask Assistant City Manager Patrice Toney, we had an issue with the retiree not getting the information that they thought they needed on enrolling for benefits. I don't know if this was a single issue or if there's anything that we need to say on a larger scale that other retirees might not have gotten the information they needed.
Mr. Rao will give us some
Mr.
information
Rao,
on that.
thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Taylor, members of council, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, Councilmember Mundy. Our Human Resources Department did send a letter out last week to retirees to inform them that there were some challenges with the portal. And that at that time, the decision was made to allow them to have what's called passive enrollment, which means they did not have to go into the system. If their benefit elections were not going to change, then the system would automatically roll it into the next year. Our human resources staff has reached out to confirm contact information, but we're going to continue to work at trying to make sure we build a robust database for those who do elect to receive communications from us, whether it's via email or even text, but still to also make sure that we're providing even hard copies of the benefit booklets. We did send those out earlier in the month. Had a little bit of a technical issue with the production of those booklets, but they did go out, so the retirees should have received hard copies as well.
I'll challenge HR, whoever wrote this letter. Apparently, it was not as easy to understand as maybe they thought it should be. So with all of our communications to our citizens and to our employees, let's start writing at the right level.
Yes, sir.
To be understood. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is there any further business that should be brought forward for the good of the order? Seeing no further business, we hereby declare this meeting to be adjourned. Thank you.